Hello friends, and welcome to tonight's sleep story, in which we hear the story of Claire and her life in a village by the sea. If you enjoy these readings, I would encourage you to subscribe and perhaps click that like button. It will help the channel immensely. Thank you for your support. It is time to unwind. Find a place where you can relax. Settle into that place and get comfortable. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Imagine a serene beach at twilight. You can hear the gentle waves lapping against the shore. A soothing, rhythmic sound. There is a slight breeze caressing your skin, bringing with it the fresh, salty scent of the sea. Take another breath. The sound of the waves lulling you into a state of relaxation. With each breath, you feel yourself getting more and more relaxed. Your muscles loosen. Your mind quiets. And a profound sense of peace washes over you. You are safe. You are calm. And you are at ease. Your day is complete. There's nothing left for you to do now, but let go. Listen to the story and drift into sleep. And so, let us begin the tale of Claire. The Keeper of Clifftide. The kingdom of Vendora, a land of mystique and majesty, was nestled between rolling emerald hills and a vast, unyielding sea. Its landscape was a patchwork of verdant forests, fertile farmlands, and rugged coastlines, each contributing to the rich tapestry of life that flourished within its borders. The kingdom was ruled by a wise and benevolent monarch, King Alden, whose lineage stretched back centuries, entwining the history of Vendora with legends of valor, magic, and profound wisdom. Vendora's culture was deeply connected to its natural surroundings. The people revered the land and sea, believing them to be gifts from the gods that required respect and stewardship. This reverence was reflected in their customs, festivals, and daily lives, where rituals celebrating the cycles of nature were commonplace. In the far western reaches of Vendora lay Clifftide, a small village perched precariously on the edge of the world, where the land met the roaring ocean. Clifftide was a place of stark beauty and untamed power, characterized by its jagged cliffs, sandy coves, and the ever-present symphony of the waves crashing against the shore. The village, though modest, was imbued with a sense of resilience, mirroring the relentless sea that defined its borders. Clifftide's inhabitants were hardy and resourceful, accustomed to the capricious moods of the ocean. They were fishermen, sailors, and craftsmen, whose lives were intertwined with the rhythms of the tide. Among them was Claire, known as the Keeper of Clifftide, whose life and legacy were deeply woven into the fabric of this coastal village. Claire was born and raised in Clifftide. Her family had lived in the village for generations, deep-rooted in its traditions and culture. Her parents, Leora and Darian, were well-respected members of the community. Leora was a healer and midwife, much like Claire would become, and Darian was a fisherman, known for his courage and skill at sea. From a young age, Claire was taught to respect and understand the natural world around her. Her parents instilled in her a deep appreciation for the land and sea, emphasizing the importance of living in harmony with nature. They believed that the forces of the world were interconnected and that understanding this connection was key to leading a balanced and fulfilled life. Leora began teaching Claire the healing arts as soon as she was old enough to understand them. The small cottage where they lived was filled with the scent of herbs and the soft murmur of Leora's voice as she explained the properties of each plant and root. Claire learned to recognize the healing plants that grew along the cliffs and in the forest, to prepare tinctures and salves, and to use her intuition when diagnosing and treating ailments. Claire's education was not limited to the practical aspect of healing. Leora also taught her daughter the ancient stories and rituals that had been passed down through their family. These stories spoke of the old gods, the spirits of the land and sea, and the way in which humans could honor and appease these powerful forces. Claire absorbed these lessons eagerly, her young mind open to the mysteries and magic of the world around her. Claire's father was equally influential in her upbringing. He was a rugged, adventurous man who loved the sea with a passion that he passed on to his daughter. On calm days, he would take Claire out on his fishing boat, teaching her to read the waves and skies, to navigate by the stars, and to understand the moods of the ocean. Darian's lessons were practical and grounded, but they were also filled with a sense of wonder and respect for the sea. He taught Claire to listen to the whispers of the wind and to feel the heartbeat of the ocean beneath the boat. These experiences deepened Claire's connection to the natural world and helped her develop a keen intuition that would serve her well in her future role as the Keeper of Clifftide. When Claire was 14, tragedy struck. A fierce storm swept through Clifftide, and Darian, along with several other fishermen, was lost at sea. The loss of her father was a devastating blow to Claire and her mother, but it also marked a turning point in her life. Leora, despite her grief, became more dedicated to her healing work, and Claire, inspired by her mother's strength, took on more responsibilities. Claire's bond with her mother grew even stronger during this difficult time. They supported each other through their shared sorrow, and Claire's resolve to carry on her family's traditions and honor her father's memory became even more firm. She threw herself into her studies, mastering the healing arts and the rituals that Leora had taught her, while also taking on her father's role in understanding and respecting the sea. As Claire grew into adulthood, her reputation as a healer and wise woman spread throughout the village. She took over many of her mother's duties, attending to the sick, assisting in childbirth, and offering counsel to those in need. Her knowledge of the natural world, combined with a compassionate nature, made her a beloved and respectful figure in Clifftide. Leora, proud of her daughter's achievements, began to pass on the mantle of the Keeper of Clifftide to Claire. This role was more than just a healer. It was guardian of the village's traditions, a protector of its people, and a bridge between the human world and the mystical forces of nature. Claire embraced this responsibility with humility and dedication, continuing the work her parents had started and adding her own wisdom and insights. Claire's childhood and upbringing were marked by love, loss, and a deep connection to the natural world. The lessons she learned from her parents, the skills she developed, and the resilience she showed in the face of tragedy, all shaped her into the wise and compassionate Keeper of Clifftide. Her life became a testament to the values her parents had instilled in her: respect for nature, the importance of community, and the power of healing and wisdom. Claire's cottage was a marvel of driftwood and stone, covered in sea moss and adorned with shells and sea glass. The thick walls kept out the cold and the damp, while the windows faced the sea, offering an ever-changing view of the horizon. Inside, the cottage was a sanctuary, filled with books, maps, and strange artifacts collected from the shore. A large hearth dominated the main room, where a fire always burned, filling the space with warmth and the scent of salt and smoke. Claire shared her cottage and life with few beloved pets. These animals were not only her friends, but also served as guardians and helpers in her daily tasks. Whiskas was a sleek, black cat with emerald green eyes that glowed mysteriously in the dim light of the cottage. She had been with Claire for as long as anyone could remember, and some villagers whispered that Whiskas was as old as Claire herself, perhaps even enchanted to live an unusually long life. Whiskas was a keen hunter, keeping the cottage free from mice and other pests. She often accompanied Claire on her walks along the cliffs, her lithe body moving gracefully over the rocky terrain. Whiskas had a calming presence, often curling up beside Claire as she read by the fire or mixed her potions. The villagers believed that Whiskas had a special connection to the otherworldly, sensing things that humans could not. She was known to appear at the doorstep of those in need of Claire's help, guiding them to the healer's care. Gulliver was a large, intelligent seagull with a distinctive grey and white plumage. He had been rescued by Claire when he was just fledgling, found injured on the beach after a storm. Claire nursed him back to health, and although he was free to leave, Gulliver chose to stay close to his savior. Gulliver often soared above the village, acting as Claire's eyes in the sky. His sharp vision allowed him to spot changes in the weather, schools of fish, and even approaching ships long before they were visible from the ground. He would return to Claire with loud, raucous cries, signaling important news. The villagers came to respect Gulliver for his loyalty and keen instincts, often looking to the sky for his familiar silhouette as a sign that all was well. Finn was a large, shaggy dog, with a gentle disposition and boundless energy. He had been abandoned as a pup and found his way to Claire's cottage, drawn by the warmth and kindness that radiated from her home. Claire took him in, and he quickly became an integral part of her life. Finn was fiercely protective of Claire and the village, His deep, resonant bark was a warning to anyone who approached with ill intent. Despite his size and strength, Finn had a playful side, often seen frolicking with the village children or chasing the waves along the shore. He had an uncanny ability to sense when someone was in distress, often leading Claire to those in need of her healing touch. Luna was a majestic barn owl with striking white feathers and piercing golden eyes. She had come to Claire during a particularly harsh winter, seeking refuge in the warmth of the cottage. Luna quickly formed a bond with Claire, becoming her nocturnal companion and silent observer of the night. Luna was known for her wisdom and watchfulness. She would perch on the rafter of the cottage, her eyes ever vigilant, and her presence bringing a sense of calm and protection. Claire often consulted Luna when making important decisions, believing that the owl had a deeper understanding of the mysteries of the night. The villagers saw Luna as a symbol of good fortune, and her hoot was considered a blessing. The presence of these animals brought harmony and a sense of family to Claire's cottage. They were more than just pets. They were her confidants and protectors, each playing a unique role in her life. The bond between Claire and her pets was a testament to her nurturing spirit and her deep connection to the natural world. Together, they formed a close-knit family, united by love and loyalty, and a presence enriched the lives of everyone in Clifftide. Every morning, Claire would wake before dawn and walk to the edge of the cliff, where she would sit and watch the sun rise over the water. She listened to the waves and the cries of the seabirds, sometimes singing a soft, haunting melody that seemed to blend with the sound of the sea. The villagers often heard her songs carried on the wind, feeling a deep sense of peace and protection, despite not understanding the words. Claire's life was one of service. She gathered herbs and plants from the cliffs and forest, brewed potions and remedies, and offered her wisdom to those who sought her counsel. A healer and a midwife, a storyteller and a keeper of secrets, Claire was a beacon of hope in the village. The villagers came to her with their ailments and worries, and she always knew how to ease their pain and calm their fears. Clifftide's inhabitants were a diverse and vibrant community, each with their own stories and skills that contributed to the village's unique character. The fishermen and sailors were the backbone of the community, braving the sea's treacherous waters to bring back the day's catch. Their families supported them, tending to nets, preparing the fish, and maintaining the boats. The craftsmen and women of Clifftide, skilled in woodworking, weaving, and metalworking, provided the village with everything it needed to thrive. George was a burly, middle-aged man with weathered skin and a booming laugh. He had a deep respect for the sea and often sought Claire's advice before embarking on long fishing trips. He trusted her implicitly, believing that her blessings and potions kept him and his crew safe from harm. George's wife Anya was a skilled weaver who created beautiful tapestries and garments that told stories of the sea and the land. Anya often brought the children to Claire when they fell ill, knowing she could provide remedies that no one else could. Mara, a young woman with a natural talent for healing, had been Claire's apprentice for several years. She had a kind heart and a keen mind, learning the ways of herbs and potions with great enthusiasm. Mara looked up to Claire as a mentor and a mother figure, and the villagers respected her as they did Claire. She often accompanied Claire on her morning walks to gather herbs and listen to her stories of the old ways. Joran was a grizzled blacksmith with a heart of gold. His hands were rough from years of forging tools, but he had a gentle soul. Joran's workshop was a gathering place for the villagers, where they shared news and stories while waiting for their tools to be repaired. Joran had a deep admiration for Claire, often bringing her small gifts of ironwork as tokens of gratitude for her healing potions that eased his arthritis. Laura ran the village inn with efficiency and warmth. Her establishment was the heart of social life in Clifftide, where villagers gathered to share meals, celebrate festivals, and welcome travelers. Laura was known for her sharp wit and compassionate nature. She often sought Claire's advice on how to help those who came to her in need, be it with a hot meal or a place to rest. Laura's son, Thomas, was a bright, inquisitive boy who loved to listen to Claire's stories of the sea and ancient legends. Claire's interactions with the villagers were characterized by mutual respect, trust, and a deep sense of community. She was more than just a healer. She was a confidant, a wise woman, and a protector. Her door was always open, and the villagers knew they could come to her with their troubles, knowing she would listen and help in any way she could. Claire's skill as a healer and midwife were renowned throughout Clifftide. She had a deep understanding of the human body and the natural remedies that could heal it. When a villager fell ill or injured, they could come to Claire's cottage, where she would diagnose their ailments with a gentle touch and kind words. She brewed potions and crafted salves, using herbs and plants she gathered herself. Her remedies were effective, and her bedside manner brought comfort and reassurance to her patients. Claire's role as a midwife was particularly revered. She had brought many of the village's children into the world, guiding their mothers through the birthing process with calm and confidence. She used her knowledge of herbs to ease labor pains and ensured the health of both mother and child. The villagers believed that babies born under Claire's care were blessed, and many parents asked her to bless their children as they grew. Claire was also a gifted storyteller, and her tales were a source of entertainment and education for the villagers. On quiet evenings, she would gather the children by the fire and tell them stories of the old gods, mythical creatures, and the history of Vendora. Her stories were filled with lessons about courage, kindness, and respect for nature. The children listened in rapt attention, their imaginations sparked by her vivid description and captivating voice. For the adults, Claire's wisdom extended beyond storytelling. She was a keeper of secrets, a repository of knowledge about land and sea, and a trusted advisor. Villagers came to her with their personal problems, seeking her counsel on matters of the heart, disputes, and difficult decisions. Claire's advice was always thoughtful and impartial, and her insight helped many find clarity and resolution. Claire's role as the Keeper of Clifftide extended to the protection of the village itself. She performed rituals to honor the land and sea, calling upon the old gods to safeguard the village from harm. These rituals were a blend of ancient traditions and their own unique practices, passed down through generations of wise women. One such ritual was the blessing of the nets, performed at the start of the fishing season. Claire would bless the fishermen's nets with a mixture of sea salt, herbs, and a few drops of her special potion. She chanted prayers to the sea gods, asking for bountiful catches and safe voyages. The fishermen believed that Claire's blessings were essential for a successful season, and they never set sail without them. Another important ritual was the night of the full moon, when Claire would lead the villagers in a ceremony to honor the moon goddess. They gathered on the cliffs, where Claire would light a bonfire and lead them in songs and dances. She used this time to teach the villagers about the cycles of the moon and their influence on the tides, crops, and their own lives. The ritual fostered a sense of unity and connection to the natural world, strengthening the bonds between the villagers. One stormy evening, as the wind howled and the sea raged, a stranger appeared at Claire's door. He was a young man, tall and strong, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold the depths of the ocean. He introduced himself as Darius, a sailor who had been shipwrecked on the treacherous rocks below the cliffs. Claire took him in without hesitation, tending to his wounds and giving him shelter. Darius was grateful, but there was something in his eyes that told Claire he carried a burden far heavier than the physical injuries he bore. As he recovered, he often stood at the window, staring out at the sea with a look of longing and sorrow. One night, as they sat by the fire, Darius began to speak of his past. Darius's story began far from the shores of Clifftide, in the bustling port city of Belmara. Belmara, with its towering spires and sprawling docks, was a hub of commerce and culture, drawing people from all corners of Andorra and beyond. Darius was born into a family of shipbuilders. His father, a master craftsman, renowned for his skill in constructing vessels that would withstand the mightiest of storms. From a young age, Darius was drawn to the sea. He spent his childhood exploring the shipyards, watching in awe as the great ships took shape under his father's hands. The scent of fresh timber and the sound of hammers and saws were as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. His father taught him the intricacies of shipbuilding, and by the time he was a young man, Darius could craft a ship as well as any seasoned craftsman. But Darius's heart yearned for more than the life of a shipbuilder. He dreamed of sailing the open sea, exploring distant lands, and seeking adventure beyond the horizon. When he turned 18, he left Belmara to join the crew of the Sea Wind, a merchant vessel known for its daring voyages and skilled crew. Under the command of Captain Jareth, a seasoned sailor with a reputation for fairness and bravery, Darius found his place on the open sea. Life aboard the Sea Wind was everything Darius had hoped for and more. The crew became his second family, and the sea his home. He learned the ways of navigation, the secrets of the winds and currents, and the art of sailing through treacherous waters. Darius' skill and dedication earned him the respect of his crewmates and the trust of Captain Jareth. Over the years, Darius and the Sea Wind sailed to many distant lands. from the exotic ports of the southern isles to the icy waters of the northern realms. They traded in spices, silks, and precious metals, but the true treasure was the knowledge and experiences they gained along the way. Darius encountered many cultures, learned new languages, and witnessed the wonders and dangers of the world. Despite the excitement of his voyages, Darius always felt a deep connection to the sea itself. It was as if the ocean called to him, its vastness mirroring the boundless depths of his own soul. He often found himself at the ship's bow, staring out at the horizon, contemplating the mysteries of the deep. It was during these moments of solitude that he felt most at peace, his spirit in harmony with the rhythm of the waves. Darius's life took a dramatic turn when Captain Jareth received a commission from the crown. They were tasked with delivering a precious cargo to a distant sanctuary, an ancient relic known as the Stormstone. The Stormstone was said to possess the power to control the weather and the seas, a gift from the gods themselves. It was both a blessing and a curse, for while it could bring prosperity, it could also unleash untold destruction if it fell into the wrong hands. The crew of the Seawind accepted the mission with a sense of honor and duty. They knew the journey would be perilous, but they were determined to see it through. As they set sail, Darius felt a sense of foreboding, as if the sea itself was warning them of the trials ahead. For weeks they sailed without incident, the Stormstone safely hidden in the ship's hold. But as they neared the destination, a fierce storm struck without warning. The sky turned black and the waves rose like mountains, tossing the Seawind about like a toy. Despite the best efforts, the ship was driven onto the rocks, and the crew fought for their lives. In the chaos, Darius was forced to make a terrible choice. With the ship breaking apart and the relic in danger of being captured by those who sought its power, he took the Stormstone and cast it into the sea. He hoped the ocean would protect it, hiding it from those who would use it for evil. As the ship sank, Darius clung to a piece of driftwood, the storm raging around him. He was the only survivor, washed ashore on the cliffs of Clifftide. The guilt of losing his ship and crew weighed heavily on him, and the burden of the Stormstone's fate was a secret he kept hidden even from himself. Claire listened to Darius's tale with a sense of awe and dread. She had heard of the Stormstone in the old stories and knew of its power. She also knew that such power could not simply disappear. The sea had a way of returning what was lost, and she sensed that the Stormstone would soon find its way back to the shores of Clifftide. As the days turned into weeks, Darius grew stronger, and a bond formed between him and Claire. He helped her with her tasks, learning the ways of herbs and potions, and he began to share in her rituals and routines. The villagers grew accustomed to his presence, and he became a part of their community, though they remained wary of the secrets he kept. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a fierce red, a group of men arrived in Clifftide. They were well armed and carried an air of authority, and it was clear they were searching for something, or someone. Claire recognized them as agents of the Crown, sent to recover the Stormstone. The leader of the group, a stern man with a scarred face, approached Claire's cottage. he introduced himself as Captain Arik and demanded to know if she had seen a sailor matching Darius's description. Claire, with her calm and inscrutable demeanor, invited them in, offered them food and drink, stalling for time. As the man ate, Claire quietly slipped away and found Darius. She told him of the soldiers' presence and their intentions. Darius's face grew pale, and he knew they could not stay in the village any longer. They had to find the Stormstone and ensure it remained hidden. Claire and Darius left the cottage under the cover of darkness, making their way to the cliffs where Darius had been shipwrecked. Claire led the way, her knowledge of the land guiding them through the treacherous paths. As they reached the edge of the cliff, the sea below churned and roared, as if sensing their purpose. With Claire's guidance, Darius began to search the rocky shore for any sign of the Stormstone. The waves crashed against the rocks, sending up sprays of salt water, and the wind howled around them. It was a daunting task, but Darius was determined that the fate of the kingdom, and perhaps the world, depended on finding the relic. Hours passed, and the night grew darker. Just as hope seemed to fade, Darius spotted a faint glimmer among the rocks. He scrambled down, his heart pounding, and there, nestled in a crevice, he found the Stormstone. It was a smooth, oval-shaped stone, glowing with an eerie blue light. He could feel its power pulsing through his fingers as he held it. With the Stormstone in their possession, Darius and Claire knew they had to act quickly. The soldiers would not give up their search easily, and they needed to find a place where the relic could be hidden and protected. Claire led Darius to a hidden cave, known only to her and a few trusted villagers. The cave was deep and secure, a perfect sanctuary for the Stormstone. As they placed the relic in the cave, Claire performed a series of rituals, calling upon the ancient powers of the land and sea to guard and protect it. Darius watched in awe as she chanted and moved with a grace and power that seemed almost otherworldly. He realized then that Claire was not just a healer and a wise woman. She was a guardian of the old ways, a keeper of secrets, and protector of the land. With the Stormstone safely hidden, Darius and Claire returned to the village. They knew they could not stay, for the soldiers would continue their search, and their presence would only bring danger to Clifftide. Claire made arrangements with the villagers, ensuring they would be looked after in her absence. She entrusted her cottage and its contents to Mara, who had been her apprentice. As dawn broke, Darius and Claire prepared to leave. The villagers gathered to bid them farewell, their faces filled with gratitude and sorrow. Darius and Claire had become a part of their lives, and their departure left a void that would not easily be filled. Darius and Claire set out on a new journey, one that would take them far from Clifftide and into the unknown. They traveled by land and sea, using their skills and knowledge to help those they met along the way. Darius' strength and courage, combined with Claire's wisdom and healing abilities, made them a formidable pair. As the years passed, their bond grew stronger, and they became legends in their own right. They were known as the Keepers of the Storm, protectors of the land and sea, and guardians of the ancient relic. Their adventures took them to distant lands and brought them face to face with great challenges, but they always returned to the sea, drawn by its endless mystery and power. In time, Darius and Claire found a new home on a remote island, where they could live in peace and continue their work. The island was a place of beauty and tranquility, with lush forests, clear streams, and a hidden cove where the waves lapped gently against the shore. They built a new cottage, much like the one in Clifftide, and filled it with books, maps, and treasures from their travels. As they grew older, Darius and Claire took on the role of mentors and teachers, passing on the knowledge to a new generation of keepers. They taught them the ways of the land and sea, the secrets of herbs and potions, and the importance of balance and harmony. Claire's hair turned silver, and Darius's beard grew long and white. But their spirit remained strong and vibrant. They knew their time on this earth was limited, but they also knew they had made a difference. They had protected the Stormstone and ensured it would not fall into the wrong hands. They had healed and helped countless people, and had left a legacy that would endure. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the sea and the sky turned a deep shade of gold, Claire and Darius sat together on the porch of their cottage, watching the waves. Claire took Darius's hand and smiled, her eyes filled with a lifetime of memories and love. "We've had a good life, haven't we?" she said softly. Darius nodded, his heart full. "Yes, we have, and it's not over yet." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the gentle rhythm of the sea. The world around them was ever-changing, but the bond was timeless, like the tides that ebbed and flowed. And so, in the twilight of their years, the Keeper of Clifftide, the sailor who had been lost at sea, found their place in the world. They were a part of the land and the sea, a part of the ancient stories and the future yet to come. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, they knew they were exactly where they were meant to be.